Privacy is dead, and social media holds a smoking gun. Pete Cashmore, Mashable CEO.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Mentality. This is Gambo, and I'm here with Simmons. And today we're talking about the effects of social media on today's society. How should we consume it? Well, we don't really have all the answers, but stay tuned for another interesting episode. Welcome back to the show, guys. My man Drew, how you feeling today, man?
Chillin', bro. How you doing, man?
Chilling, ain't not much to it. So, social media, man, how you feel about that? I know the statistics
I
that we
hate
quoted
it.
earlier, and it sounds like the number's pretty high for, a lot of negative impact on today's generation, but there are obviously some positives as well. What's your take on social media?
So that's exactly why I'm not on social media. It's too time consuming. It takes up so much of your day and so much of your mental energy for what I feel is entirely just flexing to your friends that you don't even talk to on a regular basis.
Yeah, I feel like, so what would you say to people to do monetize, returns on social media? So people who otherwise wouldn't have been able to, you know, once feed their families are able to do that in such a crazy amount now on social media. Like you mentioned that you're not on social media, but do you think a lot of people should take that approach, or do you think there's a balance to social media?
So that's totally fine. I respect the hustle. My brother actually does that, like almost, if not exclusively. Like he he's a model, so best way to get seen is through social media, and he sells Herbalife. He's a very successful Herbalife retailer, and he's able to do that from the amount of followers he's amassed from modeling. So respect the hustle all day. If you got to eat, and that's how you want to do it, by all means, I'm not gonna stop anyone from eating, but to the 99.9% of us who don't, and to I hate to be like one of those guys, but think of the children. But legit, think of the kids for a second, because you have kids growing up thinking that they have to look, do, act, and buy a certain way in certain things, when the majority of things that they see, especially on social media, especially nowadays, like back in the day on MySpace, no one was photoshopping their pics like that as hardcore as they are today. It's where you can't even discern reality from fiction. So that creates a lot of damaging self-image things, especially when you're growing up with it. Like you're born into a social media culture. It's it's not going to be conducive to learning how to truly love yourself and appreciate the things that you have, and not always wanting more, wanting more.
Right. No, I definitely feel that a lot too. Cause, I mean, like honestly, myself, I'm barely on social media. I like right now, I'm actually not on anything. Like I have a Facebook account, but I don't really use it. I just kind of keep it for the contacts. You never know when you need to reach out to somebody, or you know someone that you might have lost a connection with, and you kind of rekindle through Facebook or whatever. But I absolutely agree with you in the sense that a lot of people in today's generation just seem to not hold a lot of intrinsic value in themselves. Our generation is a generation that tends to look at other outlets or other people for a lot of inspiration. And granted, that's always been the case in human history, but it's just more so of an issue now because, like you said, anybody could hop on, any platform and pose themselves to be somebody, and they might really not be that person, or they might not have a positive influence on the people who are watching them. And so I guess my take on social media will probably be more along the lines of you can use it, in a positive sense. For example, I know your bro, he models and he uses social media because you got to eat. Like that's what you're going to do to be able to amass a following. But to the people who are looking up to somebody like that, I think we need to be able to put back a lot of value in ourselves and not constantly look outwardly for, validation, if you will. Which kind of brings me back to another topic. I don't know if you heard about the whole, the Steph Curry and Aisha Curry incident. I don't know if you heard
I
about that.
haven't.
Now you haven't?
I
I
don't watch
bet.
the
So,
news either, man.
so it was basically an incident, and it doesn't tie too much into social media, but I'll bridge a gap to it. There was an incident where basically Aisha Curry kind of said that she feels as though Steph Curry gets basically like a lot of attention. Like, and she, as his wife, feels like sometimes she's put on the back burner. Like, she basically isn't like, she doesn't feel like she basically felt like she can't be out there to put herself where people are like giving her a lot of attention, but she kind of wants to. In a sense, it sounded to a lot of people, and the way people kind of digested that was that she wanted to be like a thought, and she wanted like a lot of validation from a lot of people. Granted, that's not exactly what she was saying, but I feel like that kind of ties into the fact that like we tend to put a lot of our intrinsic values on the way people see us. And I think that's one of the issues that feeds into the whole aspect of social media and people just looking up too much to these other people and not being able to get the same results. Because like you said, a lot of it is photoshopped, especially a lot of women and men.
You'd be surprised how many dudes are photoshopping their pics too, man.
Big facts.
It's just a lot. But the Aisha Curry thing, I actually did hear about that.
Mm-hmm.
And when she starts sinking threes left and right, then maybe we might give her some more attention and shit. But yeah, like I'm not trying to downplay you at all. I'm not trying to be sexist or nothing. But you're like, yeah, basketball player's wife. Like for real, why should we give a shit about anything you have to say or do anyway? The fact that you have your own platform, you've amassed your own following. That should be, I mean, should be plenty. I say should, not having that following myself. I don't know how it feels to have hundreds of thousands of followers and shit that like you just for you. They don't even watch sports,
Right.
but they know you.
Right.
So I like to say, hey, just shut up, be grateful. But at the same time, I don't know how it is to be in her shoes.
Yeah, but see, I think that's one of the issues as well because she's saying she doesn't want to just be recognized as Steph Curry's wife. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, I believe that the real incident behind it was like she was posting thirst traps or some shit like that. Like
Yeah.
she's just like she likes thirsty comments.
Yeah.
Which like that would make anybody feel amazing. I totally, I mean like I always got my one opinion and then I like got to face reality for how it is. Like my
Okay.
opinion of it is, why would you do something like that? You have a husband who's loyal out here. He could bang any chick under the sun,
Facts.
and he's loyal to you for all that we know of it. But in reality, it's like if you can get 30,000 people to talk about how attractive you are, like that's better than any drug she could probably ever buy or take. So
And see that
I
that's
really can't knock her for that. Like I get it.
right. But see that's also the scary part because going back to the whole issue of social media, I feel like you're right. Like, that is like a sense of a drug, right? Because people take that and they get that high from, that like or that comment, and it becomes like a reactionary thing where you're constantly getting that and it's feeding into your ego and you feel like, oh my God, I gotta get these likes. I gotta, well, Zoe and JoJo are doing this, they getting all these likes. Man, I gotta do something to, like also be able to get in on that. And I feel like a lot of people kind of get caught up in that whole, like image they post online, that facade where you're posting. Because I feel like you can't, like, the whole point of social media is funny to me, right? Because it's almost like you're supposed to post all the perfect aspects and parts of your life. At least make it seem that way. But we all know there's nobody who could do that. You know what I mean? It can't be a realistic thing where you're always perfect or you always, like, live this glamorous, great life where you're always donating and you're always, like, traveling. There's shitty
The
parts
house is always clean.
Yeah,
You never
like,
got dishes in the sink ever.
facts. Like, and
Must
it's
be nice.
we know it's not a sustainable thing. But that's the scary part of social media, and that's also the beauty of it in a sense, where we glamorize, the best parts of ourselves and we leave the worst parts for no one to see. So everyone envies the best parts of us, but they're also not really seeing the struggle behind it. So I guess, like, what do you think we can do to, like, mitigate some of that? Like, how can we, how can we manage this?
So that's the thing is like we really can't because it's an unstoppable force. Really, it's integrating itself more and more into our day-to-day lives. Like I had to use Facebook to get information
Log in.
about military flights. Like You would think the military got their own website. They
Right.
got 50 trillion websites. They're like, no, I should use Facebook. And it's bugged out because it works way better
Facts.
than the 50 trillion military sites that they use
You log in with
for other
Facebook on
stuff.
everything now. Like, you know what I mean? Google.
Like, you just need one account, and all your stuff is linked together and
Facts.
stuff. But at the same time, you no longer have that anonymity that
Mm.
we kind of like. On the one hand, it's like everyone wants to keep some aspect of themselves to themselves.
Right.
I
For
get
sure.
that. When everything is interlocked and interlaced, if you accidentally like a video on Pornhub, that's just gonna pop up on your Twitter feed or something, and then you no longer have that veil. So that's the one scary shit of like when you hold your phone, hold it the right way for your finger slip and you hit a like or something.
Yo, but for real though, like not everyone. I don't think everyone is like that. Some people truly don't care. Some people are truly like open books. Some people could like really put their lives out on display. I'm clearly not like that, and I know
Yeah,
you not like that. But yo, some people are cool with that. Some people are like, like for example, if that's somebody's hustle, especially, they could just put their lives on display, and they're cool with that because they know they're going one, they're gonna get the accolades for it. They're gonna get praise for it, and two, they're gonna eat off of it. So for some people,
and
they're okay with it.
that's cool for them, but it that'll get to a certain point to where if you're posting whatever you decide to post, especially if you're making your living off of it,
Mm,
9 out of your 10 posts, if not more, are not gonna be you at the DMV waiting in line and you just throw on some sweats, or you with the flu and you're puking in the toilet at 2 a.m. and stuff. It's always going to be the nicer aspects of whatever you've got going on. And it creates a lot of pressure, especially the more people you have following you, to continue to maintain that. Not so much that facade, because like a lot of those moments probably are genuine happy moments, which is
true.
cool. But if you lose yourself in that, then every aspect of your life has to match what you present it to be.
Mm,
And then that's going to create a lot of inner turmoil in yourself, because like if life isn't perfect, then something's going wrong and you start freaking out and you start over worrying, and then you overcompensate for other things, and it's a game that can only be played for so long. Like it's like, how long can you keep the how can you only keep juggling the balls in the air? You got to stop.
right.
Something's got to give eventually.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, and I think you definitely hit on something that I actually agree with a lot too. It's like it really is based on person to person, like your personality, and I feel like how well you can handle pressure or certain things, different consequences that come with social media. Because whether we like it or not, there are consequences, and there are benefits as well. So for someone who is an open book, like you might be able to, you might be able to tolerate more social media time. You might be on like 5 different platforms. If you're more of a closed book, then you kind of move like that, and you don't put your life on social media as much, or Facebook. You just make sure you limit what it is that you filter in or out on your life, because that really does, like, it does have like a lot of mental and emotional, like, consequences to it. And so I know like one of the ways that I definitely like try to, like, if I felt like I don't mind using social media, but I definitely listen to my body, and like I notice my actions as well. Like if I feel like I'm on social media way too much, like I just randomly scroll for no reason when I'm bored, those are like signs for me that, like, okay, this is like a cue, right? So that's like leading for me. That's like a habit that I'm developing. That's like one, eroding my time, and I'm not being efficient or effective at all. So I need to do something to deal with that. And some of the ways that I personally kind of handle that is like I usually like, and this is just for me personally, I usually just like delete the app. I won't necessarily like I won't necessarily like discontinue my account, but I delete the app, and I monitor like my screen time on my iPhone, because on the iPhones now they have like the
How
time
much you
screen
use your
time manager.
phone,
What
how
happened?
much you pick it up, how much you use your phone, how often you pick it up, what
Yep,
apps you're using the most.
yep. So I definitely pay attention to those things, and I feel like that's something we could all kind of like incorporate, to see how we are spending our time. And if that's what you would like to do, and that's what makes you happy, and I feel like by all means, spend time on social media. And if you're gonna spend that much time, shit, I mean, you might as well use it to the best of your advantage. If you can monetize it in some way, shape, or form, if you're built for that life, go for it. But I think the key takeaway that I would definitely want to post or propose to people is that, one, you have to understand that whatever you're seeing on social media, man, it's like the best parts of people's lives. And then usually that like is fabricated, because those moments, like you said, might be genuine. But in order for you to see someone taking that dope ass picture on the beach with the sunset, they probably took like 50 pictures of that just to get that good one and edited a couple things to put that so it looks super dope and glamorous. Don't
Not to
take that.
mention the whole travel aspect leading up to it,
Facts.
losing
The
your luggage at the
airport,
airport, the
sitting, waiting for your
Airbnb was
flight.
trashier,
Facts. All of that.
all the little minute details
Big
for
facts.
that one pic.
So I feel like, like just keeping that in mind, and coupled with the fact that, people's lives are going to be different. What someone puts and holds valuable, you might not need that, and you shouldn't, for no reason, or no reason should you have to like try to assimilate to that. And I think that's what kind of keeps my sanity, man. Like I do like an on and off kind of thing with social media.
And that's exactly why I don't use it. I don't use it because like I don't like it or I think it's bad because
Mm.
like there's aspects of it that I do miss. Like I had a friend from middle school, he died,
Right.
and I didn't know until I talked to my cousin a few months after it happened and stuff like that. So like you got friends and stuff. Like unfortunately, some of them pass, but some of them get married, some of them have kids.
Right.
There's life events happening for people that you do care about that you just missing out on. So that's a big aspect of it that I miss for sure. But like you were saying, for the other 99% of the time I'm using it, I'm just looking at memes and I'm just wasting time, turning a 5 minute poop into a 20 minute poop. It's like I'm just sitting there on my phone scrolling and scrolling. Like
Facts, man.
it's a big time waster when I could use my time more productively. Like if all the I looked at all the time I spent on social media and like on Reddit, which people like to say Reddit's not social media. Reddit is social media all
Oh,
day.
facts.
If you use Reddit,
Yeah.
it's you talking. It's nothing but talking to people. It's the most social app there is.
Yeah.
But as I spent so much time, I'm spending like 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, especially if I'm like traveling somewhere and like I'm just have a lot of idle time in the car and like I'm
Mm.
not the one driving. I just be on social media and stuff like that. I notice it more, especially like when I'm hanging out with friends and stuff. Like we'll have a lull of like the conversation just like fades out, whatever, and you
Right.
just look at everyone. Everyone got their phones out, just not interacting, not looking around at the surroundings. Like we travel to this awesome place, and everyone's face is glued to their phones. It's a double edged sword. It's got its pros, it's got its cons. But
Right.
to me, like the few cons that it does have, they outweigh any other benefits. Like if I need to know that bad, then like I'll find out. If I need to get in contact that bad, I'll find a way.
Yeah.
That might be a little old school of me and not thinking super progressive because like the future is internet like entirely. Like email is probably gonna fade out at some point, and it's just gonna be direct messages. Like you can directly message anybody if you have their Facebook. This at any time. That's
That's
more
wild.
powerful than an email. More powerful than a text message. Even it's
Facts.
I know when you got it. I know when you opened it and read it. Everything. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever get back on though.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Honestly, I don't know either, man. Like right now, I'm off. But I think I definitely will. But I mean, like another thing that I think is interesting is also like, where social media is like, when we compare it to like what people kind of said back in the '60s about television. I know when television first came out, it was like, the idiot box, right? Like, you just sitting there
Yeah.
and you going to rot your brain, man, watching all this TV. What's going on with you? Like, get away from the TV. You're going to rot your brain. So I wonder, like, social media will take a turn, and, we might not be so invested in it. And personally, my opinion, honestly, I feel like although it has like all these negatives and it has a lot of positives, I feel like social media is always going to be around how television and email has been around. But I feel like its impact on society will diminish. I feel like I give it maybe like another 10 years, man. I don't know. Well, like technologies like AI coming up and a bunch of like, 5G and all this stuff, I feel like it's the effects of it will diminish, where it's always going to be around, but it's not going to be this, not necessarily this thing that we're always going to be glued to. I feel like this is like a very, very unique time that we live in where we're seeing this kind of stuff. So I don't know what your takes are like on the future of it.
So I'm gonna go in the total opposite direction. You ever watch Black Mirror?
I fucking love Black Mirror, bro. Seen all of them at least
Season
twice.
3, episode 1, Nosedive.
One of my favorites, Mr.
Yep.
Rags. One of my favorites.
Yep. When they just be, you have to rate people,
That's a good
and
point.
depending on your rating, determines your socioeconomic status. So if you have
Hmm.
low ratings, you can't get certain houses, you can't drive certain cars, you can't buy certain clothes, you can't eat at certain places. And Black Mirror, I love Black Mirror so much because it's a quote unquote futuristic show
Right.
that's like centered in a lot of reality.
But yo,
And I shit you not.
can I interject real quick?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just a quick question though. Like, don't we kind of like live like that already? Where like, when you think about like your credit score or your salary or, like your
Oh
status
yeah.
and social class. So like,
Oh yeah.
I don't like.
We
How do you
don't we
think
don't
social media would tie into that though?
because it's another avenue of people being able to how they perceive you.
Hmm.
Like every from the last time I posted something on Facebook, like I think I just joined the army or something
Okay.
like that. And that was I'm a totally different person now.
Right.
Like I've had 50 trillion life experience since my last Facebook post and everything. And most people don't know that. So kind of walking around in the world is this image of Drew is this, and he's limited to these experiences because you put everything that you have ever done on Facebook.
Right.
And people don't know that I've traveled around the world, that I've gotten married, that
Right.
I've gotten divorced,
Right.
that I was a stepfather,
That's true.
that I've been promoted and stuff like that. Like there's a whole bunch of life stuff that people don't have a clear view of you. So when I go back home and stuff, it's a jarring experience, which I guess is like I guess that's normal though. When
Hmm.
you really think about it, like that's how not so much normal, but that's just how everything used to be.
What? So do you think
Which
social
again,
media will be used as like another like measure of like how well you do? So for example, kind of how we talked about your credit score is like literally kind of what nosedive was kind of implicated about. I know it's talking about more about social media in the future, but if you think about it, your credit score determines a lot of that. You can't live in certain houses, you can't buy certain things, you get perceived a certain way based on your credit score. So do you think
oh
social
yeah,
media will be used as like another gauge, like as another estimate of like how well you are in life, how successful you are or not?
it kind of is in the aspect, not so much of like it's gonna limit you to purchases. At least I hope not. But the fact that you don't have social media, a lot of people see that as very weird.
That's true.
Like socially speaking, if you don't have social media, it's you lose out on a lot of connections. Like I know it's in the dating world. Like if you want to be like, oh, let me get your Facebook, let me get your Instagram. I'm like, I don't have it. I don't have that. I don't have that. I luckily have Snapchat,
Hmm.
mainly just to talk to my friends back home.
Right.
Cause like having people download WhatsApp and stuff is like way too damn complicated. I'm just like, hey, I already got Snapchat.
Right.
That's why I keep it. But besides that, is a lot of times I'm asking for phone numbers, and a lot of times I want to call, and it's when you want to do those things that were typically normal and now they're not because you could just use social media, you get a weird stigma put upon you,
Mm.
and that limits you in your ability to socialize with others.
I will
In
say this
terms of
though.
like, go ahead.
Yeah, I felt like in my experience though, I think it might be perceived overall as kind of being unusual, but I think people do kind of admire that. I think people kind of admire you for like, oh man, like you don't have like I get that like you don't use social media or like yo, where you been at? Like when I take my high hitters, like yo, where you been at? I'm like yo, I haven't been on like and I just don't. And so I feel like I guess it depends on who you talk to, but it's been my experience that like sometimes people kind of admire that. I think sometimes people kind of wish they can do that, but they don't necessarily. They might be too interwoven with the fabric of social media to even like get out of it. But I think people like that, you know, in a phone call, like because you can't really
I
conversate
like
on
that.
social media, you can, but like how
Yeah,
extensively?
like you'll reply whenever you feel ready to reply and stuff, and
Exactly.
like that's some people who talk to each other for 7 days, when like a 3 minute phone call would have sufficed.
Yeah, it exactly. So I felt like, I mean, I think a lot of people look at social media to be like a fun thing to do. It's something to kill the time. It's something that's cool, that's hip. Because when we think about like MySpace, which kind of started for our generation, right? Um,
Yeah.
it was a cool thing to have where you kind of expressed yourself in what you were about to the world, right? And then
Yeah,
we
you can
move
add
into
your favorite music and your
yeah,
backgrounds and shit. Yeah, my shit's dope. My
all
shit's
your
dope.
decors, like the designs and all that.
And
Remember
you
that
change
shit?
the mouse and your computer starts slowing down, but don't matter.
Good
My
old
shit was
times, man.
dope.
And then we slowly moved to like Facebook, where we get more of an adult filter where it's not just expressing yourself only. It's also like about being more connected, right? So
Yeah.
Facebook kind of like took the big leap. Is the next big jump where it's like, yo, you don't just talk to people in your circle, but like now you could connect with somebody who's fucking across the world. Like you can talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, right? So we see that become more of like an attempt to be more connected and more of a communication device. But then that aspect of like being able to express yourself is still there because you get things like Instagram and Snapchat. And these things are like very expressive of people's like talents in their lives, and what they like to do and who they want people to see them to be. So I feel like that's just kind of like an aspect that like people use social media a lot for, and not much so just the conversation piece. Because like you said, there are more effective ways to communicate, but I think that's the piece that people kind of hold on to. I think that's the piece that kind of gets people stuck and hooked. And once everyone's doing it, it's hard to get out that loop. You feel me?
It is, and you miss out on a lot of the stuff too, because like a lot of events will be organized through Facebook. Like if there's something going on in your town, you won't know about
Yeah.
it if you don't see it on Facebook.
Huh.
If there's a new restaurant opening up, you want to get real reviews. You don't go on Google reviews. You kind of got to go on Facebook,
Right.
and then you want to see who's reviewing it. Look at their profile and be like, all right, this person doesn't seem like they've been there. Like it tracks your data and shows that like on June 11th, this person walked into this restaurant for an hour and a half. So like,
Right.
I know they went there. I know they had the experience, and it's more it's a more open thing for sure. It makes you more connected to everyone and everything around you. But it's and again, this is just for me. It's just that's really all well and good for the 1% of the time. That's what you're going to use it for. But the other 99% of the time is you just scrolling,
Yeah.
not really looking at anything. And like I dare somebody to tell me that's there's otherwise. Like, cause you go on Instagram, like your friends are having babies every single day. They're getting married every single day. It's a once a year, twice a year per friend. They'll have a
Right.
big life event. Other than that, is people's drunk Snapchat videos, which I'm famous for. Thank you, thank you. It's people's stupid freaking their I don't know look their food that they're eating or something like something goofy like that. Just
Right.
nothing of substance, nothing really life altering, life shattering, and you can still use the good aspects of social media without being on social media. I don't have a Facebook account, but I can still get on Facebook and look at who's talking about what. I can still see what events are going on in my area. I can't join clubs, which that kind of sucks, and I miss out on that because like
What you mean by you
I
can't
was in a
join clubs?
weightlifting club. I was on a weightlifting a fan page. I was on a weightlifting fan page from my college when I was in the weightlifting club, and like all we talked about was different lifts and building strongman equipment and all the stuff that I love to talk about. I have no one to talk about with because none of my friends like to work out like that like I do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big thing that like that alone could probably sway me to getting back on the social media just so I can find people who like to do the same shit that I like to do. And
I feel that.
that's a really powerful aspect of it, I think. But
Yeah.
when I'm not talking to them, what else am I doing on it?
Yeah. And like I guess like also when it comes to social media, I guess like my my concern, my biggest gripe with it is like I fear that the generation of kids who are coming up. I just hope they're smarter and that they're not like feeding too much into it where they're like not able to formulate their own identity. You feel what I'm saying? I just
Yeah.
hope that people are not building their identity based on other people or what they see as the norm, because that kills uniqueness, that kills creativity, and that kills yourself. Really, like, um,
I totally agree with that. But then you also got to remember that's the thing about kids is like that's literally all they do. Like back in the
facts.
70s, you're going to dress up like your favorite pro wrestler, or in the 80s, you dressing up like the A team. 90s, you dressing up like X-Men. You identify with whatever it is that you're exposed to. And that kind of goes back to how TV used to be, what social media is now.
Right.
So kids getting their identity from social media is no different from you and me getting our identity from whatever shows we was watching when we was kids.
Facts. Facts. So,
Cause I had every throwback jersey because I saw them in all the music videos and stuff. I had Jordans on because I saw people on TV
that's
talking about
true.
them.
I mean, so I guess do you feel like we kind of like over exaggerate the effects of social media, or do you think it is more enhanced because it is everywhere and very accessible, might I add?
We overestimate and underestimate different aspects of social media. We overestimate the we overestimate that the I would say the danger of it. Because I remember when I
Mm.
was on MySpace, we weren't supposed to have a MySpace account. My parents found out me and my sister had MySpace, and they tore our asses up. Cause that's
Who
when
you talking to? You don't know who's on the other side of
man,
the
what
line.
the fuck?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
'Cause
feel that.
that's when To Catch a Predator had just come out.
Oh yeah, yo, that was a
So
good time.
they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
like, no
yeah. I remember
MySpace,
that.
no nothing, don't do none of that. And then sure enough, we
Facts.
got caught. They tore our asses up. I know that while yes, sex trafficking on social media is still a big thing, I think your average kid has they know the trappings of it. They know how to not get kidnapped. I would hope.
Right.
I would hope you're instilling that in your children on ways to not get kidnapped. Also, I'm thinking about people are kidnapping, but that's a whole other topic. But there's aspects of it that we should be afraid of, but we're not afraid of because we don't understand the full power of it just yet. In
Right.
hindsight, when we look back, it'll be like, how can we not see this? But for the time being, like I bring up the Black Mirror episode because they're actually doing that in China right now.
Really? How so?
They have a social rating. I don't know if they use a social media platform precisely, but they do have a social rating. And people are losing benefits they could have had they had a higher rating. If it was 5 years ago, all right, you could live here because you got money. But now money is no longer the issue. It's like, do people like you? Are you a likable person? Are you active in your community? And like they hold you to that standard, which again, I can hear the naysayers now, like, well, if you are likable and you are a people person, you should have nothing to worry about. But most people want to live by the fact that I've earned this, like from my work.
Right.
Like I have a job for a reason. Now I gotta like it's like I'm always at work. I always have to put on a face when I really just want to go home.
Yeah. So to me, it sounds like right now we're kind of like teetering on two different like opinions, right? It sounds like one, we're saying that social media is it sometimes can be exaggerated in certain aspects, right? And in other cases, it's not necessarily being dealt with or being managed by users to the point where it's like healthy, right? Because and I feel like that's also like a perspective thing, because going back to the original thing we said is like I think it's gonna be a case by case thing for everybody. Now it would be very scary if we all like had to use social media and became like a norm, like how you said they might be doing in China. That to me I think would be very scary, and that's something that I just hope we'll never get to. So just to kind of like wrap things up and kind of get an idea of like where we stand. As for me, I feel like social media has a lot of positives, you know, and I feel like we should take advantage of those positives. At the same time, we need to recognize the negatives and understand that, it's not always as good as it seems to be. And at the same token, if you can take advantage of it, monetize it, if it makes you feel happy intrinsically, why not? But just make sure you're managing yourself, your time, and how you spend your time on social media and what you internalize from it, because it can have a mental and a physical impact on your life. I think social media is also sometimes exaggerated in the sense that, like before TV was gonna kill people and make people all stupid. And we sometimes kind of attribute that with social media. We're like, oh my God, it's just horrible, and like everybody's gonna go get butt lifts, and everyone's gonna just look up to this person. But you're right. We also kind of did that when we were younger. We looked up at people on television. The only issue now is I think social media is just a lot much more accessible. So we need to make sure we're telling our kids and the younger people who are coming after us, coaching them through how to, just common sense. Like, honestly, like, look, man, like, this thing is so accessible, anyone could use it. So you need to understand that who you're following and not necessarily want to, like, imitate that. I think it's the same thing as it was, like, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, I might add, because we're in 2020 now. But it's just going to be like a different impact because it's so accessible. And because it's so accessible, I think it will be helpful and more beneficial for us to be able to manage everything. It's basically moderation with everything, right? So I think that's why I stand on that, personally.
Yeah, word of the day is definitely moderation.
Yeah.
Teach your kids, like, there's no escaping it. When you have kids, they're going to be on social media.
Yeah.
And at some point, they're probably going to do something that they shouldn't be doing. But it's up to, it's really no one's responsibility but the parents to mitigate that when it comes up.
Right.
So, like, I personally don't use social media. If I have a kid, they might want to use it. And they use them younger and younger now all the time. And we can't really, I don't even know if, like, we can't or we shouldn't have that mentality of, like, it's weird seeing a 9-year-old with a cell phone, because 10 years ago, it was no way in hell a 9-year-old was going to have a cell phone.
Right.
But now it's kind of the norm and stuff.
Oh,
so
for sure. My nephew got
instead
one.
of trying to,
literally,
exactly,
got a whole
finally
iPhone
pay
and shit. He
bill,
texting me, FaceTiming and shit, all that.
Exactly. So it's not so much like trying to fight the future as it comes on, but just learning how to navigate it.
Right.
It's like it is. This is it. This is the cards we're dealt with. Now we got to play the hand. So social media is an inevitability. So at least teach your kids and teach yourself what's real and what's not, and how to moderate.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
And if you're like me and have poor self control, you just delete it. That's first and foremost. I know myself. I suck.
I agree with that, man. Yeah, so I think that's all we have for today. Pretty much Drew and myself, we don't really mess with social media like that. But to each his own. You do what you want and you moderate yourself. Thank you for listening. On the bottom of the show notes, we're gonna leave a couple links to some books that you could kind of check out. To help you manage your time on social media, manage your mental on social media. Also, just keep in mind some of the tips that we gave. Use your phone. They have tracking devices that kind of measures your screen time on different apps. And yeah, with that being said, Judy, you want to add anything else to that?
At the end of the day, you're gonna do what you want to do. Just I hope you would educate yourself and make the right decisions before you do so. Take a break. Cut it off for a month. It's not gonna kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And you go back to it. See which one you like better. You like living off the grid or on the grid. Do what works best for you. Do what makes you the most efficient you could be. If that's on social media, keep it. If it's not, deuces.
I bet. Well, y'all heard the man. Well, we really thank y'all for listening. Until the next time, we'll catch y'all later on the Up and Up. Peace.
Peace out, Cub Scouts.